like looking at the money and I was like, I feel gross. And I was like, I'm going to go home and have a shower. And I showered and it was like, this grossness isn't washing off.
Yeah.
And it was a moment I'll never forget. It was like the first time I tried to wash myself clean and couldn't do it.
I'm Ange.
And I'm Beck, and we are
Gold Diggers.
It's not what you're thinking.
And we dig the gold out of everyday life stories.
Like today's guest.
Yeah, my name's Jack, and I think my goal is inspiring the next generation to have a positive mindset and also to chase faith with unique abilities and a unique vehicle of rapping and an expression of faith that they probably haven't ever seen. So I think that's my goal at this stage.
Honey, you're my sugar.
What is the strangest thing you've ever eaten?
Ooh. It's hard to think. I can't even remember what I've had for lunch most of the time.
I am such a fussy, well, not a fussy eater, but I won't eat anything unusual. So I don't know if I've eaten because I'm just like too picky. I just eat normal things.
Yeah, I'm not adventurous with my food. I
Yeah.
wish I could be more adventurous, but probably I may have had shark at some point. I think. Just tasted a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I mean, people like kangaroo and all sorts. Have you tried kangaroo steaks? And
No, well, I had a bite and I hated it. Ugh.
I don't like the taste. It's very kind of gamey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I don't.
And also, I don't think we should be eating animals that are on our coat of arms.
Good point.
It feels a little bit wrong.
Do you know, like people love scallops, for instance,
Yeah.
or scallops, the fishy ones.
Yeah.
Not the ones you buy that are deep fried, but
Yeah.
I just don't like the texture in my mouth.
Yeah.
It's like oysters.
Yeah.
And I can't eat them.
Yeah, I
They're
don't
horrible.
like anything seafood. So
Yeah,
I
you've
won't
kind
even
of
go
asked a question with the most uninteresting people when it comes to food.
There is one thing that I thought was unusual. I went to Spices, Spices.
Oh, yeah.
And they brought out this plate and it had this twig on it and little squirt or something and something else over here. And I'm like, oh, do we
The
eat?
stick insect.
Do we eat the twig? Anyway, I'm like, okay, so just pick it up and start nibbling at it. Honestly, that was the best tasting twig I've ever eaten. Not that I've eaten any other twigs. That was the only.
Oh, I can. You've reminded me of something.
Yeah.
What was it anyway?
I don't even know, but it was so tasty. I couldn't believe it. A twig.
I remember being far north Queensland
Yeah.
and we were kind of out bush somewhere or like in the rainforest, and they said there's these ants, that a particular type of ants, and if you lick their bum
That just sounds weird, Ange.
I don't know whether it was some kind of medicinal thing or it tasted really nice. I just watched everyone else do it. I did not do it myself. I can't imagine myself licking ants' bottoms. But it was quite humorous watching other people do it.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't do
So
that.
if you've licked any ants' bottoms, can you please write to us on our socials and tell us how they taste? Did you enjoy it?
And now to the show.
Honey, you're my sugar.
So today we have Jack Smith on the show with us. Thanks for joining us, Jack.
No, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. We're looking forward to delving into your story today. To start with, Jack, I'm going to throw to Ange and she's going to come up with an interesting question, aren't you,
Yeah,
Ange?
well, normally we come up with like a bit of a quirky first question. So, you're a young guy, so I was just thinking of a toolbox, right? So if you were a tool in toolbox, would you be a hammer, a saw, or a leveler? What do you call that? A spirit level.
Ooh,
Which one
good
would you
question,
pick?
Ange.
I was hoping you'd just say like what tool would you be full stop? So I was like, I'd be a multi-tool.
Ooh.
But I can't
Well, you
say
can tell
that.
us about that in a minute, but
Yeah,
out of the three I picked, would you be any of
A
those?
saw,
A hammer
a hammer.
and a level.
It'd be a very tough choice between hammer and saw, but I think I'll go saw.
And why would you pick saw?
Because I believe that like what I really love to do when it comes to like speaking is like sharing truth that old things fall away. So yeah, it's like cutting stuff off and separating it. So it's kind of like
That's so
Yeah.
good.
That was good. That's a great answer. So
Yes.
tell us about the multi-tool then.
multi-tool because I've got so many like multifaceted parts of me that work in so many different ways and so many, I guess, avenues to express my creativity. So it's like there's different facets and I can operate in so many different functions. So it's like,
Okay.
got the little scissors, got the little file, got the little knife. So yeah.
So you sound a bit talented, Jack.
Multi-talented.
What are some of your talents?
I'm a rapper, first and
Ooh,
foremost.
Nice.
Yeah, I like to write hip hop. I go under the name T Cozy.
Yeah.
I also used to do stand-up comedy. I really want to get back into that.
Yeah.
I've produced films before.
Wow.
I did model and acting when I was a kid, and I'm also trained to be a motivational speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, you got a few irons in the fire there.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the motivational speaking then. Is that something you're doing currently?
Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I work with a company called JC Action Sports.
Yeah.
We get to go all around Australia and we share a message of hope to young people. Last year we did 100,000 young people, and then this year we're hoping to get over 200,000 or 300,000. So we go in with a portable half pipe. The boys do crazy stunts on BMX bikes, which I'll never do. I MC.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're normally at the Life Point Church.
Yes, the Christmas shows. Yes.
Yep. So they do that, and then I MC, I rap there, and I'm also able to speak, and we do messages on positive mental health, domestic violence, and we also get to share the gospels in various forms. So
Yeah, amazing.
Nice.
So tell us a bit of your backstory,
Yep.
how that came to be, what got you into it.
well, essentially a lot of my past from growing up with, I guess, a bit of a harder background, some things that were difficult. And I remember one day I was at school, I was probably in grade 10, and Nick Vidic, I can't pronounce his last name if
Yeah.
that's how you say it, but
I know.
I apologise, Nick, if he's listening to this and he hears that.
Vidjovic?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know who you mean.
Yeah. So
But basically, he was born with no arms and legs.
yes.
Yes.
And I remember he came to my school when I was in grade 10. He was on a platform, he was sharing, and it just impacted me so much. And I said, one day I want to do what he's doing and go around to schools and help young people to see a hope and a future in their life. And since I had that, I guess that struggle in my upbringing, that's what led me to do that. And then seeing Nick was like, all right, this is possible.
That sounds like it was a bit of a turning point for you where you decided that you were going to help others through your speaking opportunities. What led up to that moment where your life changed and you wanted to step out and help?
Pretty much, long story short, finding Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, I was very selfish beforehand, and finding Christ definitely made that turning point. We go, all right, this is not about me. I want to help others.
Yeah.
Because I lost sight of that through my journey as a young kid. I was always like, I wanted to make music to help people. I wanted to speak to help people. But then as I got tainted by the world and the views of the world and, the desires of money and wealth and all of that, it became a lot inward focused, and it was like, how can I serve myself and how can I get better and how can I do this? And I was a mess and I was trying to help people and it wasn't working. So
tell us a little bit about that. What was life like before you found Jesus?
Yeah, so I was brought up and raised on the Sunshine Coast, really, really beautiful home. My parents were really wealthy. So I guess I didn't have a lack of need. I had everything that I needed, essentially, which was really, really beautiful. And I take that as looking back on it now, I'm like, man, I was really, really fortunate because there was a lot of people that didn't have what I had. But there was things in the household that was really, really hard to, deal with it as a young kid, and I didn't really know how to. My mum, back when I was younger, she was struggling with addiction, with alcoholism, so she'd get drunk for weeks on end, and it would happen, every month or 3 months. We just never knew. So it was like a ball in the air, like when's it going to happen? And through those times, my father, because he was a lot older, he refused how to learn how to do banking. So we would go for weeks not knowing. Sometimes the power would get cut and sometimes we wouldn't eat very good food. My dad would make me 2-minute noodles and stuff like that. And I was like, just learn how to bank. It's not that hard. Go put some money aside in a sock. Come on. And that just frustrated me because I was saying hey, we know it's going to happen. Let's prepare for it. And it never did. So that made me feel like, I guess at a young age, without knowing it, subconsciously, I was really getting hurt by that because I'm like, you don't care that this is going to happen to us, and you're not caring that we can put something in place for the future. My dad also had throat cancer, so from the moment I was born, he got given cancer, and he got a very low percentage to live. He got I think it was a 3% chance of living from the moment I was, I guess, conceived. And he got chemo, radical chemo. He survived that by the grace of God. He never told me. He always told me it was his positive thinking. And then afterwards, when I became a Christian, like later on in life, he's like, oh, there was a prayer group that used to come around and pray and worship over me every night when I went through that radical chemo. And I was like, what are you talking about? It wasn't you, it was God. But he ended up getting a hole in his throat from the radium. And so he was really hard for him to breathe and talk. His body just like almost rejected it. And it was really, really difficult to watch him kind of struggle with that. And I just wanted to help him and I couldn't. And then there was a lot of tension and there was always fighting at home. There was arguing. My brother, who was, when I was 12 years old, he was from my dad's side of the family, so we never got to meet him. And he finally was like reconciling back into our life. And when he was 17 now, so he was free to make his decision to either come and meet us or stay away, and he wanted to come and meet us. So we got to meet him, and I got to meet him for like the first time properly, not being like a little baby anymore. And I was like, wow, this is I have an older brother. Like, this is awesome. Like, I finally get to connect with him. And I was like super pumped. He was going to go to the army. He played rugby. Like, he was just an awesome guy. And I was like, man, I'm so pumped to have a cool older brother that's a role model and stuff like that. And then the same year that I got to be, I guess, reconciled and to meet him, he ended up passing away from a drinking accident and got hit by a car. So I was confused. I was at the funeral like, man, I don't have any emotion because I don't know this guy, but I feel like I should be sad. So I was really, really confused about how to process that, because I was like, man, like, I don't get to have an older brother that I wanted anymore. And my other older brother, he was a junkie from when I was a young age and doing drugs and was like in the rock and roll scene. So he would steal from us and then go sell it. So like a lot of my stuff was just getting stolen, and it was hard because I wanted to trust him and all this stuff, but it just never really worked out. So from the age of 13 onwards, I was into drugs as well. I was drug dealing. I was like living promiscuously, sleeping with women, and like going to parties, like sneaking out and going to parties and getting like drunk and on drugs and stuff. And it was just like really bad. And then I was just trying to become a man, and I didn't know what that looked like. I was getting drunk because that's what I thought being a man was. I was going and sleeping with a woman because I thought that's what being a man was. I was getting into fights because I thought that's what being a man was. I was doing home invasion, like, not, I didn't get into the home invasions, but I was hanging around people that were doing crime and stuff like that, because I was like, oh, well, that's what's going to make me a man.
Do you think some of that was from because your dad was sick, so he wasn't really that role model to you at the time?
Yeah, I didn't get much of a... My dad taught me some amazing skills. Like, he taught me how to speak in front of people, which is like... I look back now and like so many people can't speak in front of a crowd and they're terrified. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Like, my dad made me do that at a very young age, and I'd hold conversations when I was 7 years old with 40-year-old men. So I learned how to articulate and how to have a conversation and shake people in the hand and look them in the eye. So he taught me some great life skills, but I didn't learn like different skills because he was so sick. So I couldn't throw a footy with him because he would just get in pain and he would just be hurt. So playing with dad meant I would hurt dad. So yeah, it did hurt a little bit, and I didn't think I had that, I guess, that the person to look to take me out and show me what it means to be a man.
Is that where your brother stepped in? So you were about 13 and you started hanging out with your brother and
about 12,
his crew? Yeah.
So yeah, I only got to meet him a couple times before that accident happened, but yeah, I was just really looking forward to that because he was young and he was going to be able to take me to do those fun things, and that's what I guess my heart was longing for. I was like, yeah, like I get to do fun things with someone that's older, and since I didn't have him, then I attracted worse older men that were going to parties and doing all that stuff, and I was like gravitating to them and hanging around them and, you know, following what they did. So
but then you also said that you were involved in, like, you started rapping and you modeling or acting. Was there acting in there somewhere? So how did that part, because obviously your life was derailing at this point, so then how does this start happening as well?
So great question. I found rap when I was 13 years old. I was at a skate park. These guys took me to their house. They were all doing drugs, so it wasn't a great environment, but there was a guy playing a movie from Biggie Smalls, and I'd never heard of this guy, and he played it, and it was like boom, like the first intro song hit me like electricity, and all the guys there were just bopping their head and they all started rapping to this guy's flow, and I'm sitting there like, man, this is the most rhythmic, most amazing experience I've ever heard. And then instantly it was like, I want people to rap my song like they're rapping this guy's song. I just got up and just left, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm going home, and I started writing raps from that moment on. Obviously,
You might be surprised to know I do know Biggie's stuff. Right? No, not personally, but does that make me cool?
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't say he's a great role model. Looking back on it now, I'm like,
Yeah.
well, probably not the best guy to listen to. Like, I don't listen to any of that stuff anymore. But from then on, I started writing music, and little did I know it's a form of journalism. So I was expressing my heart, going through all these traumatic things at home, and then I was using a pen and paper to get it all out, and I was writing, the stuff that I was going through. And now I look back on it, I'm like, man, that got me through all those hard times. So that was where the inspiration started to wanting to help people, of young kids that were going through stuff that was similar. Sadly, it got skewed because I was listening to the likes of Biggie Smalls and stuff, and they were not rapping about helping people. They were rapping about the
Helping
complete
themselves.
opposite.
Yeah.
So I kind of got strayed from what I originally went to rap for.
Did you kind of spiral into a rap world? Like, was it a bit of a down pit for you?
There's not too much rappers on the Sunshine Coast, so it wasn't like there was a really big rap scene. Everyone looked at me when I told them I wanted to be a rapper. They're like, mate, that's so silly. Yeah, like I may as well have told them that I wanted to be the president of the United States. Like that's how out of the box wanting to be a rapper was. Because you look at the Sunshine Coast music scene, it's indie folk, maybe a bit of country.
Yeah.
Like there's no rappers, and there is a few, but there's not a big rap scene like you'd see in Melbourne or in America.
So where did that journey take you? You've obviously recorded
Yep.
your work. So
Yep.
like where did that lead?
Well, when I was young, not very far. Like I'd just do raps with people, and obviously a lot of people were telling me, you can't do it, you're silly. And at the start, I was very resilient. I was like, man, I don't care what you said. Like I've made my mind up. I'm going to be a rapper. This is what I'm going to do. But over a course of period of time of everyone saying that, it got to a point where I actually believed what they said. And I said, you know what, maybe I am silly for being a rapper. And it took one person to change that, because that was sending me to a trajectory where I wouldn't have been a rapper. But it took one person just to believe in me and to speak some positivity and some encouraging words into my life. And he looked at me and said, you're an amazing rapper. You're so talented. You better never give up. And his words, he was an older male. He was a fighter. His words impacted me so much that that's what carried me on to keep pursuing rap. So even though my life was a mess, the music was what was keeping my head afloat, because I had this dream and this hope that one day I'm going to make a song that the world's going to know. Yeah. So that's, I guess, was a hope in the darkness. But sadly, because I was in the darkness, I was rapping about darkness, and I didn't have any positive. I've lost sight of that, and that's what kind of got me there.
What did that darkness look like for you?
It was just a lot of depression, a lot of feeling isolated and alone for me. Like I still remember to this day, I walked up when I used to live with my family in our old house. I walked up to the street one day my family had a massive fight, and I was just like, man, I'm so sick of this. Like I was like in tears, and it was nighttime, and I walked down the hill, and there's like this house lit up, family sitting around a table, mum serving dinner, and everyone's laughing, and I just sat there looking at it like, man, I just really want that. So the darkness looked like escapism through drugs, like not actually facing problems and dealing with problems. It was escaping through using drugs and other means like drinking and one night stands, like stuff like that, to express, I guess, my anger and my frustration. But yeah, it was a lot of anger in my heart, a lot of pent up emotion, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety that was coming in.
Did your parents stay together? Or
Yeah, they stayed together.
Your father survived the cancer?
Yeah. My dad just had a hole in his throat, so he always says that he'll die with it, not from it.
Okay.
So yeah, it didn't stop him. It stopped him for a year from working, and then he just went straight back into working. Like he's a gun. He won't stop.
With your rapping, are you still rapping?
Yeah. I got a rap name called T Cozy. So yeah, I go all around Australia with JC, and we perform in front of kids, and yeah, it's been really awesome. Some testimonies that have come from that has been really cool. Like, we're walking down, my wife and I, with our child. We went to Golden Beach the other day, and these kids were like, man, that's T Cozy. Like, you performed at my school. And they ran up and said, man, like, listening to your music has encouraged me to continue following faith.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's super, super cool to hear, because before I saw it as a vehicle to get famous. And now I see it as a vehicle to inspire kids to follow
Amazing.
faith and to inspire them to pursue something and do something different. And
So, Jack, you were saying that you're into drugs and everything. How did you find faith? What happened around that time?
So, to tail completely back to your question as well, like how did like that creative side come in through the darkness? It kind of all ties together.
Right.
So I was kind of like just sick of my home life and all of that. So as soon as I wasn't allowed to leave home until I was 18, and I didn't really want to. I wanted to leave, but I had nowhere to really go. My sister offered me to come live with her on the Gold Coast, and I ended up moving to the Gold Coast and just pursued acting. And then I got around to creatives, and then that was horrible because they were not like, they were also into like, I was like, I'll get out of like the party scene, I'll be able to get away and get free. But then that kind of went worse because all of them loved to party, and all the ones I was around did.
Yeah,
and,
especially on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, it was bad. We were like from Thursday to Sunday, like almost every week. It was just like partying, so it was horrible. But
yeah, I was going to say you didn't do the typical Aussie thing and go in the neighbours and home and away route then.
No. Yeah, so I went to an acting school. We got around creatives. I started writing scripts like every day, and I was just like trying to collate this like bunch of short films that could make like a mini series and then pitch it to Netflix. And that was my goal. I wrote heaps of scripts. I was acting, I was producing, I was writing stand-up comedy as well. While I was down there, I was writing rap and writing music. So I was like, this is the time that I'm going to put all my energy into my creativity and just see where it goes. And I was really, really scraping for money. Like I was working in hospitality, doing all this stuff, but I really didn't want to do it. And one day this girl at acting school was like, hey, I saw this job that was going, it's like paying a really high amount. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like that's cool. And she's like, oh, you should go and like see what it is. And I went and had a look at it, and it ended up being the adult film industry. And I was like, oh. And when I was that young, and the role models and the influence I had as a kid, like that was the dream job. Like, quote unquote, I'm going to say that very loosely because it's so normalized in this culture, especially as a young male. And when we started talking about it, it's like everyone's like, man, that's the coolest job ever. They don't really see the behind the scenes and the darkness and all of that. They just think of the money and the girls, and they're like, that's cool. So like that was like in my brain already, like this is the coolest job ever. So when that got pitched to me, the guy that pitched it to me just sold me the lifestyle. He's like, you're going to have money, you're going to have a house on the beach, you're going to have all this stuff, and I'm sitting there going, man, this is all that I want. I want a house on the beach. I want money. I want girls. I want all of that. Because again, I didn't know what being a man was, and I thought that's what being a man was. So he pitched it to me. I didn't really listen to what he was saying. And throughout the process of what he was saying, he's like, he was loosely saying these terms about, guys and girls, and I was kind of like sitting there going, oh, I have no idea what he's talking about with this guy and girl stuff. But I was like, he's talking about money and house on the beach and women. So I'm going to say yes to that. And I didn't really listen to what he meant until after it happened. Then I realized what he meant by that. And so I ended up doing a video. You weren't allowed to see what was on the other side. And it was just this real dodgy thing. And I ended up getting money, and I was like, wow, I got heaps of money. And I used that money to produce the film that I was creating at the time. And through that period, I was like, man, like I feel really dirty. Like I was looking at the money in my car, and I'll never forget it. I was like looking at the money, and I was like, I feel gross. And I was like, I'm going to go home and have a shower. And I showered, and it was like, this grossness isn't washing off. Yeah. And it was a moment I'll never forget. It was like the first time I tried to wash myself clean and couldn't do it. I was very spiritual through this whole journey. So from the age of 16, I had an out-of-body experience where I realized my spirit was different to my flesh. And that's what led me to seek spirituality. I ended up getting into Buddhism and that lifestyle. I got Buddhist tattoos on my back, like sakyants, and I later found out it was like all like witchcraft and stuff like that. But I was living this lifestyle. My sister, when I moved to Gold Coast, she was really into New Age, like spiritual practices, Reiki, the crystals, the healings, the manifestation. So I started really digging into that, and like looked at like all the old manifestation teachers, and like looking at the motivational speakers as well, because that was my dream to become one of them. So I was like setting up all these routines and like speaking positivity, like naming and claiming, all that stuff. I was doing it all. Like I was meditating, doing Tai Chi, yoga, like all this stuff. So I was very spiritual through this whole process. And after doing that video, I was coming onto Sunshine Coast to film our big film that we got the funding for and all of that. And I got a message on my Facebook, and I remember opening it, and it was a guy, and he sent me a photo from the video. And I remember opening it, and it was like, oof, and it like, just the whole world dropped. And the only way I can describe it that I feel like people will understand is like when you're a kid and you knew you did something wrong and your stomach drops, you're like, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble. It was like that, but times 1,000. Like the whole weight of the world just sunk. And I was like, oh, and I saw in the video, in the photo that he sent, it ended up being a guy, not a girl. And I was like, oh no. And he's like, is this you? And I try to make a joke of it, and I was like, yeah, man, like, ha ha ha, like, all cool. And he was like, you know, man, like, I'm coming for you. And I was like, what? Because at this point, an indie record label from Melbourne had seen my music, and they were interested. You know, I was getting funding from the government for my film, like I was doing stand-up comedy. And so I was like getting a lot of momentum in this stuff. And then this guy said that, he's like, no, like, I don't think your record label's going to like the fact that you did this. Like, he's like, you're disgusting, like, you're worthless. He's like, I'm gonna post this to everyone all around, like all on your Facebook page. I'm gonna post it to every one of your friends. And like instantly my heart sunk, and I was like, oh no. Like I did care about my friends and my reputation, but my main thing was like, I didn't want my family to find out. I was like, that's so bad. And I was like, I don't want my dad to find out, I don't want my mum to find out, like, this is disgusting. And then he just kept reinforcing, saying how disgusting, how worthless I am, the fact that I did this. And I was sitting there just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And this went on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And I was just getting worse and worse and worse. And my mental was getting worse and worse and worse. I started thinking maybe I am disgusting. Maybe I am worthless. Like, and then I was like, man, how can we put this to bed? I was like, what can we do to get, like, to hush this up? He's like, oh, I know exactly what you can do. He's like, come let me do sexual acts to you. Like, that's how we can clear this all up. He's like, you let me do that, like, we're all good. Like, and I was like, nah, sorry, man. Like, I don't do that stuff. I don't swing that way. I'm sorry. Like, is there anything else? And he's just like, yeah, you can send me money then. And I was like, I don't want to send you money. Like, what's going on? And he like kept sending me the video, just saying like, I've got this saved, got it on my laptop, I'm gonna post this all over your socials, like blah blah blah. And I was like freaking out. And I just like, man, I don't know what to do. So I ended up just paying him the money. He like made me send this video of like saying like, oh, I'm sorry for what I did and stuff. And I remember just like crying and asking a friend like, what do I do? And he's like, go to a lawyer, see what they can help you with. The lawyer was like this guy just down the road. He's like, yeah, you're not the first person that I've like dealt with this stuff before. He's like, it's a very common thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, I don't even know why you did that though. He's like, you're disgusting. Like, the fact that you did that, mate, like, you should not have any worth in yourself. Like, mate, you're far out. Like, you're just saying the exact same things. You're worthless. You're disgusting. And he's like, mate, I have to go through like hours of videos now, and I don't want to have to watch that stuff. Like, oh, mate, you just make my job so hard. Like, you're just so disgusting. And I'm sitting there in the flipping room, like shaking, like just so torn up about what I did. And I was like, man, I don't want to hear this stuff. Like, I'm terrified. And then the lawyer found out who the guy was. He ended up being this like Instagram famous guy. And he's like, oh yeah, we got a case here. Like, we can go to court. I can see it like on the front news of the paper, like gay boy gets like tormented or blackmailed by Insta's famous guy. I was like, no. I do not want like I don't want publicity. I don't want anything. I was like, I don't want anyone to know about this stuff, man. He's like, well, if you don't want, he's like, we can get him for extortion. Like, we can do that. And I was like, no, I'm all good. Like, it's all good. I was like, it's just let's just get rid of it. And it was just like a waste of time. But he just said I was worthless and I was disgusting. And then from that moment on, I put a mask on for my rapping. I called myself Statement back then, and was a Japanese character, and I had a full mask that no one could see my face, and I hid myself. I took myself away from stand-up comedy. We had the news interviewing us for our production. I stepped completely away from it. I'm not going on that TV even, and everyone was like, this is your production. Like, you're the reason why we're here. Why are you getting someone else to speak? And they took all the glory, saying it was like, you know, their production and all of that. I was like, I don't care. I was like, he can have it. I was like, it's got nothing to do with me.
So this was a significant moment in your life that really ruined your life, didn't it? And it changed everything.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So did it take you to a rock bottom moment that then you found?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I pretty much just took myself away from everything. Music was the only thing that I was like, I can still have a shot with because I can hide myself from that. But everything else I couldn't. I was like, I can't act. I could probably produce stuff, but I was like just so shaken up. And I I found this girl as well through, like, after all this happened, and you know, I was like, oh, I can't tell you what I've done, and I told her, and she's like, oh, it's not even that bad of a deal, like, big deal. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're the first person that hasn't told me I'm like worthless and disgusting. So I threw all my value into this girl now, and then halfway through the relationship, she ended up getting an STD. And then she was just saying, like, she was blaming me for it. She's like, well, you're the one that did the video. Like, you're the one that's could be disgusting. Like, you're the one that has stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And at that point, my brain, like, just split. And I didn't know what to do anymore. Like, I was hearing voices at this point. I would, like, because I was a barista, I'd, like, heat up the coffee wand and, like, stick it into my arm and, like, just start self-harming. And, like, yeah, just couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I'd, like, want to punch the mirror and be like, you're worthless. Like, you're disgusting. Like,
Wow.
I was very, very close to, like, disfiguring my whole face. Like, either cutting it and disfiguring it, or, like, getting full face tattoos so no one could know who I was. Like, I was, like, going to change my look completely just so no one could see who I was. And I kept having these thoughts. It was either kill myself or turn gay. I was like, they're the two options I have. And I couldn't really, and, like, I was remember, like, sitting there, like, maybe I can make a joke of it all. Like, and just, like, try and do stand-up comedy and just go out and make it live. And it's like, oh, like, this is funny. And then I was like, maybe, like, yeah, I don't know. Like, and I couldn't reconcile with it, and, like, I would try and escape using drugs, but then the drugs felt like they turned on me, and I'd start hearing voices and seeing visions while I was on the drugs, and they'd just be like, you're a loser, kill yourself, like, you're never going to make it as a rapper, like, you'll never do it, like, you look at this video, and I'd see the video and it would play out in front of me, and I'm sitting there, like, just trying to write music, and I couldn't get it out of my head, and it was like, I was freaking out at this point.
So you've hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Then... So at what point did you meet Jesus in this process?
Yeah. So I pretty much all that happened, and then I got to a point where my mate found, one of my friends from Sunshine Coast found the video and shared it with everyone. All this stuff just kind of just blew up. So I was like, no, I can't do this. And I just remember it was nighttime. I'm sitting on the floor. I'm just crying, and I'm just, like, asking for forgiveness, and I, like, didn't know why. But I was just asking for forgiveness, and it was really funny because I started saying I sinned against my father, and I just want forgiveness. And it was very interesting because I just came back from Japan recently, so their culture is really big on honor, and you don't disgrace your father's name. Like, that was huge. So in my eyes, I was like, I've disgraced my father's name. Like, I've disgraced my dad, and I was, like, just crying for forgiveness. I was like, please forgive me. Because I used to always talk to the universe, and the universe would speak back. So I was like, you need to forgive me. Like, if there's a God, you need to forgive me. Like, I've hurt my father. I've hurt myself. Like, I just want forgiveness for what I've done. And I broke. Like, I completely broke. Like, I was pouring my heart out on the floor, just crying and crying and crying. Like, and I just heard that voice again, just saying, like, you need to end your life. Like, end your life. And I was like, you know what? I have no strength to fight this voice anymore. I'm just going to do it. So I walked out of the house, and I was a mess at this point. Like, my brain felt like there was, like, I was hearing audible voices. Like, it was like a fight in my brain. I'd just sit there and, like, almost listen to it. And I was like, this is crazy. But I was walking out and hearing these voices, and I was like, you know what? I've talked to the universe. The universe, you've spoken back. And I was like, if there is a God, I was like, this is the first time I addressed God. I was like, I've always called it the universe, or, you know, source, or whatever you want to say, but I'd never address it as God. And I said, look, there's so many religions out there has to be a God. Like, I know there's a God. I was like, I know you're there. And I was like, but if you're there, to show me who you are, give me a sign. Like, give me a sign that you're real, that you're listening, that you're here right now. And then I was like, no, I've had so many signs in the New Age. I had so many signs in spirituality. There's heaps of signs and wonders. I was like, stuff that I've had enough signs. I was like, if you're God, like, if you're really who you say you are, I was like, you'll do one better than just give me a sign. I was like, you'll come down and you'll speak to me. I was like, that's what you'll do if you're God. You'll come down, you'll speak to me, and you'll tell me that I'm on the right path and everything's going to be okay. I was like, that's what you'll do if you're God. You'll come and you'll speak to me. And I was just so certain. I was like, that's what God will do. And I just began to walk trying to fight this decision that I was going to make, and I was like, maybe I can turn it around. Then I was like, no, I can't. And I was just pacing back and forth. Like I'd go to walk towards this bridge and then turn back around, then walk back, and trying to convince myself not to do it. And I'm like sitting there having a conversation with no one. I would have looked like a Fruit Loop if you're watching me from the street.
This is a decision whether you're taking your life or not.
Yeah. And I didn't know like what I was going to do, but I knew there was a bridge over there, and I knew I wanted to not be here. So I was like, I'm just going to just walk, and I'm either going to convince myself to do it or convince myself not to do it. Like that was my thought process. And I was trying to convince myself not to do it. But then every time I got to that point, I was like, no, I can't. And just got to keep walking. Yeah. And when I got there was a homeless man sitting under a gazebo, and he was asleep when I walked past. And I was like, man, like maybe I can help that guy. Maybe that'll make me feel better. I'll help that guy. And maybe I'll do one last act of being a good Samaritan. I'll try and help the guy. And I was like, oh, he's asleep. It's all good. And I walked past, and then I just feel a burning to turn around and look at him, and I turn around, look at him, he's just sitting there smiling at me, and I'm like, oh, what the heck? I was like, all right, yeah, no, I'll go and talk to him, I'll try and ask him if he needs some help. I walk up to him, and I'm like, hey man, like, do you need a blanket? And he's smiling, he's like, no, I'm fine. I was like, oh man, I can't even help this guy. I was like, do you need some food? He's like, no, I'm fine. I was like, I'm so worthless, I'm so like pathetic, I can't even help a homeless guy. Like this guy's full of joy and he has nothing, and I've got everything but yet I've got nothing. And I was like, man, all right, whatever. And I like went to walk away, and then for some reason, I didn't know why, I just turned and I said to him, like bubbled out of my mouth, I was like, hey man, I'm a poet. I'd love to just hear your story. And he just smiles at me, and he's like, hey man, Jesus loves you. He's like, God wanted me to tell you that you're on the right path and everything's going to be okay.
Wow.
And I was like, what? I was like, no, this can't be real. This can't be real. I was like, out of all the gods, out of all the religions, I was like, Jesus was not the one that could be real. I was like, I mocked that one the most. I made fun of that one the most. I was like, all right, God, I wanted to end my life. I was like, if you have a better life for me, I was like, I lay my life down. Give me yours. Give me what you have for me. I don't want this life anymore. I felt the love of God just fill me. I felt darkness leave me, and I felt joy come into me and love. And I was like, and I just started crying with happiness for the first time in my whole life. And I was like, man, what was that? Like, what? I was like, man, you have no idea how much I needed that. I was like, well, I guess you do, because you told me everything. So I guess you did know. And I was like, I asked God for this, and you gave it to me. I'm like, and I was like, oh, I had no word.
He knew everything about you.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know anything to say. And he just smiled at me. He's like, can I give you a hug? And I was like, yeah, please. And I gave him a hug, and he's like, Jesus really loves you. So
how did your body feel? Did you feel different?
Yeah, I felt light. Like I felt love came into me, darkness left. I felt heaviness leave. I felt everything leave me. It felt like I was brand new. It was like light, clear-minded, like the voices, everything left.
Almost like a baptism.
Yeah, it was just like complete freedom from everything that was holding me. Every bondage, every darkness, everything left. It was just like...
It's obviously a very life-defining, changing moment for you. And then, so is that resulted in just a complete change of direction now? And so even the skills and things that you have in rapping and poetry and comedy, you're now using that for God.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what's life like now for you?
Life is amazing. It's a roller coaster. Like when I found Jesus, I was like, all right, well, I had all these lists of things to do for motivational speaking. I just changed it for Jesus, and I was like, I'll sit, pray, worship, read the Bible, and then just wait for Holy Spirit to talk to me. I was like, well, God spoke to me, so if I just talk to him, he'll talk back now. So I just had that understanding from the very start. So I ended up moving back to Sunny Coast, moving back in with my mum, back in with my dad, and I was like, I do not want to do this, but I felt God tell me, go into that place. My mum ended up having a radical encounter with the Holy Spirit, stopped drinking. My dad's on the fence. He's still like, man, like there's a difference in you. Like my mum and dad could see that there was a difference in me. Like I wasn't having girls over every night. They're like, I was like just wanting to know Jesus, reading my Bible every morning. They're like, all right, this is weird.
So talk to us about your speaking career now.
Yep.
Well, it might not be a career. It might be. It's something you're pursuing.
Yeah.
So you're going into school. So what's the message you're giving to young people?
A message of, I guess, positivity for young kids and having a good culture, because it's like positive words and the power of life and death in the tongue. That people were speaking negatively, that brought me down. But yet it took one person to speak life, something positive that echoed for the rest of my life. So
Yeah.
it's like positive words, and it's like an anti-bullying essentially.
And why are you so passionate about that?
Because I just love that sharing with kids, because like I get to see kids and speak to kids, and some of these kids have such hard backgrounds. Like they make my story look like porridge pie, like it's so sad to see what they're struggling with and what they're going through, and they're doing it on their own, and they're doing the same things that I was doing, and it's not getting them anywhere. And I want to help those kids, because I'm like, man, you're doing what I'm doing, and I can help you out of that, because if you keep doing those things, this is where it's going to lead you. And I know that, like, a lot of those kids that I hung out with when I was like young, a couple of them are doing really well, but a lot of them are in jail. Like a couple of them passed away. So it's like I know where that lifestyle is going to lead them, and I want to take those kids out of it, especially with the help of JC, because they're doing another style of Christianity that no one really sees, which is like people doing backflips on bikes, and you're like, what the heck, this is wild. And then I'm also a different flavor of that. So I just want to give those kids a message that will resonate to them, because I share it in a way that's palatable for them, that's different, and it's unique. So, and I just want to help them essentially to get out what I was going through.
Absolutely,
so,
yeah. Awesome.
And like, yeah.
So you do know we're going to ask you to rap, hey?
I had a feeling.
Have you brought something to rap?
Oh, I can just make something up on the spot. We normally
do we need to do this?
Yeah.
Get us started.
I'll let you do that.
Yeah, well, you can do that.
Boxing.
No, it's good. Yeah, normally when we go to schools, we get like the kids to give us like 5 random words, and then we try and rap it, wrap the 5 words into the song.
Oh, should we do that?
We make it up on the spot. So that's really fun.
Okay. Hope.
Hope. There we go.
Persistence. And
camera, microphone,
yeah,
and shoe.
Very
random.
Yeah, I like it. So we got hope, persistence, camera, microphone, shoe.
So random, Edge.
Yeah, the hardest part is just remembering all the words, because once I get there, but if I get stuck, I'll just look at you and do a panic face, and you can just help me out. all right, I'll see if I can do this. Yeah, you see, I'm just trying to show you guys that I really got that hope, and it's just gonna overflow, because I got the Holy Spirit living in me, so I know where I'm gonna go. See, it's the eternal life, and it only comes through Jesus Christ. See, I got that faith, so you should see this. I know I'm gonna run that race. I'm doing so many laps, I feel like I need some track shoes, but I know that I can really do it. I don't need to bend back, cause my faith ain't slack, dude. I see that you can see me through this camera. It's like I'm shooting movies, live camera action. I'm ready to do this. I'm going through it. I'm gonna spit fire through this microphone, so I know where I really gotta go. I know that I can do this every time, yo. So I stop and just take the motions. I know that I just keep it going. You see it, and I know that I'm just floating. I forgot that last word that I needed to keep it going, but I keep my heart moving, because I really got that persistence. Every time I hit the resistance, I know that I can get through it, because this is something that I just do it. I know that this is something that I really gotta show you guys too, that my name's T Cozy, and you can do it if you try and put your heart and mind to it too.
Tick, 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 tick,
Yeah,
tick.
Well done. Amazing.
I normally try and do it in order, but I was like, I forgot.
It was very good.
Very
The
good.
story, didn't
I would
it?
have forgotten the 5 words just saying the 5 words.
Hey, I was going over what were they again? This shoe, this. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years, hopefully on tour, just doing the same thing but all around the world. That's definitely my heart and my goal. Take my kids and my wife with me, and just sharing the message of hope, doing rap, but praying, just doing the good commission, praying for the sick, raising the dead.
Wow.
So casting demons out, that whole kit caboodle. That's just because it's just freedom, and that's like what I got to experience, was a true depth of freedom that only came through Jesus.
That's an amazing story, Jack, and I'm really grateful that you shared it with us. We're going to go to some gold now, Ange.
I like, how do you even absorb all of that? But the transformation in you is evident, it's palpable, actually, and the radiance hasn't left you, or the exuberance and enthusiasm to spread the good news. And I love that you are just such a beacon of light for young people, that you have the power through, your faith, through God, to really bring change to young people's lives, that, you know, you can pull them back from the brinks of death and change the direction of their future. And you're really passionate about that space, and you can just see that you are called for that space, you know, and it will expand and grow into other places as well. But I think sometimes when we've reached the absolute depths of ourself is where we find the true value in who we are, who God's called us to be, and what the purpose is for the future. And you're walking fully into that. So yeah.
Praise God. Thank you.
Yeah, Jack, you've really seen the depths of the darkness, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've experienced some very demonic things. So you know the reality of it. But you've also been completely washed clean of that and have seen the truth and the light that Jesus gives you and the new life. And you are really such a great representation of a new life. There's a thing that we often say in the Christian faith, and you probably know it, that you don't smell of smoke, and that's referring to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego going into the furnace. But there was someone else in the furnace with them. When they came out, they didn't even smell of smoke, and that's what I see in you. You don't smell of smoke anymore. You're a new creation, and just like Ange said, you'll be a beacon of light, and you are a beacon of light to people with a testimony that's super powerful. So keep doing what you're doing.
And before we go, I actually found what I found really fascinating about your story is because you went in depth into the mind and the thought processes of how you felt so unworthy and disgusting in those times. And I do think that they're thoughts that young people really struggle with that take them to that point. And so it was interesting to watch that and all the lies that you were believing about yourself and where that can take you. And so I think the hope that you bring people out is actually speak the truth. The truth is that everyone has values. It doesn't matter what you've done in your life, how far you've slipped, how disgusting you feel. There's always hope and there's always a new future. So thank you for sharing that message.
Thanks for listening to the Gold Diggers podcast.
If you want to be a guest or you want to reach out, you can do so on our website, thegolddiggers.com.au.
We also share behind the scenes footage and giveaways across our socials on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube and Facebook.
We dig for gold every Wednesday, so subscribe and follow now so that you don't miss a story that could change your life.
Honey, you're my sugar.